Mushrooms, mushrooms, and more mushrooms. I am so fascinated by them, and apparently I'm not the only one. The humble mushroom is the most celebrated decoration item this season. And this video is dedicated to making not 1, 2, 3, or 4, but 5 different versions of mushrooms. Even with items from the Dollar Tree store or the recycle bin, the possibilities are endless. So come along with me to the land of mushrooms.
To be honest, mushrooms are not too pricey at the stores, but making your own mushrooms give you the freedom to choose the size and color theme of your mushrooms. And you can save money, especially if you're going to make several of them. So let's look at this wondrous beauty. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the anatomy of the mushroom. We have the cap, the gills, and the staff or stem. The little spots on the cap are called scales. I am making simple mushrooms, so we just need items to make the cap and the stem. I found these mini bowls at the Dollar Tree store for the caps, as well as these mini glasses for the stems. But as I said, the possibilities of what you can use are endless. Check what you have at home before you go running to the store. Let's start with the caps of mushrooms. Let me give you some suggestions. As I mentioned, I found these clear mini balls at the Dollar Tree store. I also have this clear Christmas ornament that comes apart in half. And speaking of Christmas ornaments, I had an ornament that I didn't like anymore, and I removed the fabric. All I need to do is cut it in half. Or styrofoam eggs. You can even use a foam block if you're skillful and willing to carve your own cap. Of course, you can work with Easter eggs that pop open for a cap, and I'm also working with citrus fruits like oranges and grapefruits for a natural organic looking mushrooms. How about this one? I found this pink cushion at the Dollar Tree store, and most of the work is already done for you. This will be great for a kids' party because all you need to do is add a stem, and it's an easy and fast craft for them to put together. And finally, I was eating a yogurt and realized that a container will work perfectly for a cap. I'm telling you, I see mushrooms everywhere. The top is a little bit flat, which I don't mind, but if you want a more rounded one, just attach a few cotton balls, and why not add a few drops of your favorite essential oil. Not only it will be a pretty craft, but also a fragrant one. So as you can see, I'm giving you lots of ideas. It all depends on your preference. Do you like the mushrooms to look more flat and wide, or tall and pointy? Now for the stem. For the stem, I'll be trying to use these plastic mini glasses I found at the Dollar Tree store. I will also attempt to carve out a couple of stems from this styrofoam block that I also found at the Dollar Tree store. I'm using sticks as well. If your dog is taking you for a walk, this could work. This is a great opportunity to look for sticks. They are free and they give you that natural, earthy look. Just make sure the wood sticks are not brittle. You don't want a mushroom stem that falls apart very easily. The greener the stem, the better. Hopefully you can find some already cut when you go out for a walk. This is the perfect time of the year when people are pruning their trees.
Oh my goodness, how glorious is this? Wow.
Now, don't you go cutting your neighbor's trees. And finally, I will even attempt to use a plastic bottle. Now, let's get the mushroom caps ready. Today, I am going to teach you how to make grapefruit and orange juice. No, I'm just teasing you. For this next mushroom cap, I am going to use something very delicious and something that is going to be very aromatic. Any citrus that you have at home, I even tried to get one of those big pomelos, the big grapefruits. The bigger the citrus fruit, the bigger your mushroom cap is going to be. But I am going to try different types and different sizes to see which one I like the most. Now, when you cut your orange or grapefruit, make sure you cut the fruit as straight as you can because that's gonna be noticeable. When I am trying to relax and get inspired to clean and organize, I like to watch Scandish Home, a YouTube channel. And this is what I saw this craft. She used oranges to make decorations for fall. And I will have that video linked in the description box. I have been experimenting already. These are grapefruits that I cut in half. You can see that if you don't remove all of the pulp, it's not going to look that nice. Also, the hotter your oven is, the darker the peel is going to be. Now for the noisy part. Juicing all your citrus fruit. Perfect. Now we are going to scoop the leftover pulp so it looks nicer when it dries. We are going to dehydrate the oranges and grapefruits for close to 4 hours or so at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Alexa, stop timer. Okay, let's see how they look. Gonna turn them around. These are the oranges. Wow, they shrunk in size dramatically. Put this back for 2 more hours and then I'll see if they'll be okay. And maybe after 2 hours I can turn off the oven and just leave it overnight. Okay. And while the citrus caps are in the oven, I am going to start with the next type of cap. I'm I'm not going to give you step-by-step of how to loom because I think I have 3, if not 4 different videos of how to loom. I'll leave that link in the description box. So this is gonna be a very quick review. You will need your pick, you need your loom. Of course, make sure it's approximately the size of the cap that you're going to use. In this case, is yellow egg. Since I have the yellow yarn, you need a pair of scissors and this plastic needle that you can get at Hobby Lobby, I think Michael's as well. So we're gonna leave a tail. We're going to do a little knot. We're gonna put it on the first pick and tighten that up, not too much because I need to loom over this. We're gonna feed that through the middle so it doesn't bother me in the future. And we are going to do our first row. So we are going to grab the long end of the yarn. Notice I have marked my first pin because that's very important. That way I know if I went around once. Now, right now it's easier because this is the first row, but you can get confused. So we have 1, and we're gonna go around. Once we go around once, we are going to do a second row. And I'm back at the beginning. I'm gonna get my hook or pick, and I am going to pass this loop on top of that one. Usually the first one is the hardest one. I also like to do the last one first because that way my yarn doesn't come undone, and then you work yourself around. And you did the first cast of rows of looming or loom. We are going to repeat that. Let me put this back again on the right hand side. There we go. That way it doesn't bother me. I pushed the previous row down because now I'm going to do the same thing and go to the right and over, to the right and over, and I'm going to go all around. And again, as I said, I like to start with our last row so my yarn doesn't come undone. You're going to redo that again and again and again. Now you're asking me, why am I leaving a tail at the end of the first loop or row? It is because with this one, I am going to sew close the end of my loom when I'm done. That's so you can sew it. Once you think you have enough rows, we are going to remove all this loomed yarn from the loom itself. Now you ask, how do I know when I have enough? Well, make sure you have your cap that you're going to use next to you. If I use the bigger one, I want to make sure I have enough. Obviously, this is more than enough, but remember, once I put it on this egg, this is going to stretch. And if it stretches out and I have a little, you're going to see a lot of the egg underneath. But if I have a lot, you see that even though I'm stretching it out, because my loom is very tight, since I have a lot of it, you are not going to see that much what's underneath. I think I have enough. The other word of advice, it is easier to undo what you did than to add rows. In fact, you cannot add rows at the end once you remove it from the loom. You can remove rows, but you cannot add rows. I am going to leave a tail on this end to sew later on. Let's cut this. And this is when you need your needle. Let's put the yarn through the needle. Now we are going to find the first hook or pin. We're gonna go under. Make sure it gets just that one. And we are going to remove it once it's under, just that loop, and then pull all the way through. Now we're gonna go under the second loop, do the same thing, pull the loop out of the loom, and we are going to repeat with all the pins around the loom. Now, if you forget and pull this out without having the yarn, it's going to undo your whole loom later on. So make sure you pay attention that you are going, this is just got stuck, under each of these loops. This is the last one, and ta-da, we are removing. Let's activate this. Activating means we pull our loom and our yarn. That way it evens out. Now ask yourself the question, do I like to use this braided area, which I prefer for winter crafts like Christmas ornaments and pumpkins, but for Easter I like the inside, which is a little bit more dainty, more delicate. And since that's going to be my side, the wrong side, I am going to sew this on the wrong side, which was the right side before. Make sure it's very well secure. I'm going to turn that around. Perfect. Now, we'll finish later on because I have to show you. I want to put something inside, that way I can add the stem. Now I need to cut the extra yarn. I'm not cutting this end because this is to sew it. We're going to sew it later on like this and that. But the one that was from up here, I do want to cut it. And what I'm going to do, I am going to pull extra. I'm pulling very, very tight. Again, it was the one from the top. And then when I let it go, it's gonna stay under the loom part, and it also helps not to come undone in the future. We are going to do this process with all the caps up to this point. So let me show you what I have done with the other colors of yarns and different sizes of caps. I use this loom for all of these caps, and for this red one, multicolor one, I use this loom, and for the little egg, this 8-peg one. Now this is a 24-peg one, and so it is this one. What's the difference besides the number of pegs? Is the spacing in between. This one fits inside of there, so the number of pegs will make a difference. The distance between peg and peg makes a difference on the end result. This one was done with the same loom as these ones. The difference is in the thickness of the yarn. Now let me show you what's underneath each one of these caps. Now before you cover your cap with whatever method you have decided and glue your stem, you had to make a decision. Is this the kind of mushroom you like? It might be, but you see how the stem is very short? So what we're going to do is try to glue it at this side instead of all the way in, a little bit out. That way the stem shows more and it's a longer mushroom instead of a very short one. Now there are multiple ways of doing this. One way is, for example, you get some good styrofoam, you mark it, and when you cut it, you can see you have a longer stem. So that's one method. It's the messiest. I wouldn't recommend. The other way is get yourself some cardboard. You mark your circle, and when you cut it a little bit smaller, and you hot glue it. Now, I will do an extra step. Before you put the cap in, I will fill it with paper, especially if you do a loom one, because looming a cap is a lot of work, and hot glue it. Now I'm going to use another method. I have two of them. One can be done indoors. The other one I'll show you later on. So I have pool noodles. I love pool noodles because they are not as messy as styrofoam. So what I am going to do is, since this goes from larger to smaller, I am going to cut the smaller pool noodle. That way I can hot glue this to the center, okay? And now I kind of have to see how much of the pool noodle I need to cut. Just a little bit, not too much. Let's see. Perfect. I chose a green color just in case it shows. I would have preferably liked a white pool noodle, but I used them for my Christmas tree made out of pool noodles. Check that video if you want to make a Christmas tree totally out of pool noodles. I really like the proportion of the cap with the stem. I showed you 3 different methods. Now let me show you a 4th one, but for that one we need to go outdoors.
Okay, so this is what I need to be here outside. This is the first time I'm going to use insulating foam. I saw a gentleman making a tree for a movie set and it looked amazing.
I was going to make just one version, Loom mushrooms, and then things got out of control. And I have experimented with so many amazing mediums and techniques that I will have to present all the methods in 2 different videos. Check the link in the description box for part 2 of DIY mushrooms.
Now I thought this was gonna be a great product to do all my projects in the future, but my husband advised me and told me you can only use this can basically once. Here we go. Wow, it looks like whipping cream. So I am going just to do 3/4 because if it expands, maybe I should do less. So I found that if you let it rest for a couple of seconds, I'll say 10-15 seconds, you can scoop it up and this one will look better as well. I mean, most of this is gonna be covered, but just in case, you may wanna make it look pretty. Okay, I think these are all the caps that I wanted to do. Now I'm going to attempt to do something crazy. I wanna, let's see. I wanna see if I can make a stem. Okay. I don't think this is going to be my favorite one. I thought I had discovered something, but apparently no.
Not only you can loom a mushroom cup, but you can also loom the stem. I have an example in here. As you can see, this is done with this plastic cup I got from the Dollar Tree store, but it's just too thick. I don't like it that much. and I use this loom for this kind of stem. I am trying to use now a smaller one. So I'm going to try to use these 3 colors. And to do that, we are going to start with a darker one. Now I'm only doing this 5 times, which is gonna give me 4 full rows. And let me show you how to transition. So what you do is you cut this one long enough that you can get your fingers around. Later on you can trim that. Now we're going to do whatever knot you think is the best. There we go. I want to make sure that they don't come apart. See this brown one? Once you do that. And now we're going to try to trim those as close as possible to the knot. Now that we have that tight, we are going to pretend we are having one and same yarn, and we're going to do the same thing we have been doing, and eventually those two are going to mix up. And I'm only doing 3 rows because I don't want the lighter brown to be as pronounced as this one. Now, if you like that look, or maybe you just wanted to do these 2 colors and just a little bit of the other page or whatever, but I just want a little bit like this one. So I am going to switch now again to the lighter color. And we do the same thing. We tie a knot. Once you think you have enough rows, we are going to remove this. Now, don't let this deceive you. It looks like I loomed too many rows, but this is gonna stretch out. Okay, so I am going to remove, and before I sew it tight, let me see if I made too many rows. Now I can sew it tight. I have removed one of the links for this type of loom, and I'm trying with just 10 pegs because I still think that for some of the mushroom caps, this is too wide, too big. I want it a little bit more delicate. Now, if you're making bigger mushrooms, this will work perfectly. But for these ones, I have decided to go find some sticks. I washed them and cut them, and that's what I'm gonna put inside. Now, if I lived in an ideal world, I can probably find sticks that will end more like these ones, not that only beautiful that you don't need to cover, but they go from thinner to wider at the base. And that's what I wanted to do in here, especially if you want to display them standing up by themselves without having to glue them to any other paper or cardboard. So what I'm going to do is get back my trusty glue gun and make a false base for this one. Now, if you do decide that you need to use one of these, what I'm going to do is cut the tail, not all of it, just a little bit. Push this under the cup. I am just going to secure this little part with hot glue. Now make sure that the connecting knots are not visible on this side. I had pushed them inside with my pick. Now that we have our stems, we need to give them a partner. But before we do that, let's close up the caps for the loom caps. So let's take these 2 for example. This can take a big stem because it's a big mushroom, so it's gonna go in there, and I don't want to lose a lot of the stem, so I'm not going to do anything to this except for just hot glue it. Then I'll close my loom. For this one, the tip is not as straight, so I am going to carve into the foam and then I'll hot glue it. Okay, I'm gonna let that one dry. And now we are going to sew this close. Get your needle again, and we are going to try to go around each loop. You may need more yarn, and you can add yarn in here. You will not notice it that much at the bottom. And you're pulling that out, and it's closing the loop underneath the cap. Oh, that's looking beautiful. Let's do one more. And then I'm gonna work myself to the bottom, where I am going to secure this yarn for all posterity. I'm going to pull tight and extra and cut and let the yarn go under. Don't cut your fingers. There we go. Our first loomed mushroom. Oh, you are cute. I'm using the same system to hot glue a stem that has been loomed to a loom cap. So before I close the loomed bottom of the stem, I am going to hot glue it to this cardboard and work with the hot glue until I know it stands on its own, unless you're gonna use a round coaster, some kind of wood that you have, so it will stand on its own. To finish it, I am going to hot glue the loom to the cardboard, stretching it as much as I can without showing underneath the stem itself. What's underneath the stem? And now for the grand finale of Loom Mushrooms. When I saw this beautiful yarn at Hobby Lobby, I said, yes, it is pricey. I got it when it was 30% off, but it's still pricey for a project like this. And I said, this is gonna make the most beautiful cap. The only problem that because the yarn is so thin, the overall effect wasn't as wow as I thought it was going to be. But let me show you. I got these beautiful mini mushrooms, and you can see the yarn is very, very thin. And I used the orange peels that were leftovers. For my last one, it is going to be this beautiful red cap, and what I found, this gorgeous piece of a branch. And this is going to be I think that one of my most stunning mushroom because of this beautiful piece of wood that I found at the lake, the crowning jewel of Loom mushrooms. But look how beautiful this is gonna be. I have not forgotten about the citrus caps. Last time we saw them, they went inside the oven, drying up, and it's been a couple of weeks. In fact, I had time to even dry citrus, I think these are oranges, without even having to remove the pulp. Not only they do look cute, they look like part of the gill of the mushroom, but they also smell amazing. You can also paint the caps. I painted this one red, or even with white dots to replicate the scales, but I just want this to be natural, all natural. What I decided to do is to use for stem sticks. I want this to look very organic, and of course these are not going to stand up by themselves. So instead of using a cardboard or a coaster as I use for the other ones, I am going to use natural wood. I went to the forest behind my house and I found this piece of wood,
Now, I did soak this in water the entire night. Then I also soaked it in water and bleach for a couple of hours. And I also spray a coat of clear sealer so there are no living creatures inside this wood. What I'm going to do is use this as my base, but first I'm going to pair up all the caps with the sticks. Now that I kind of have a stem for each cap, I am going just to proceed to hot glue each one to the stem. I have glued a little piece of a stick on this side. That way it doesn't wobble or fall. Now I'm going to use some moss and start hot gluing it in different places. Doesn't this look like you just went to the forest and brought a little bit of the forest back to you? It just makes me think that a fairy will show up at any minute and just sit on one of these little mushrooms.
And now let's have a closer look of our finished fabulous mushrooms.
It just makes me think that a fairy will show up at any minute and just sit on one of these little mushrooms.